Welcome back to another episode of Breaking Quiet. I'm your host, Mary Beth Hill. I'm a person in long-term recovery, but I am also somebody who has successfully reintegrated society after incarceration. Breaking Quiet is a podcast created for women, by women, a platform where we can elevate our voices and really talk about the struggles that we've struggled through our addiction and incarceration. I am so excited to tell you for the next several weeks, we're taking a turn. We are going to be interviewing the family members and children of people who are in addiction or were in addiction and who have experienced these struggles themselves, kind of taking a different look at their perspective and the struggles that they face throughout their journey. Today, I'm so excited to have my sweet little baby on here, Ava Noble. Ava is 21 years old. Ava is a sister of somebody who struggled with addiction. So we're just going to get off into it. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so excited to do this. I'm so excited you got to come down and be here with us today. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So I always like to start off from the beginning and kind of just let's talk about you for a little bit, right? Like, where are you from, Ava?
I'm from Heber Springs, Arkansas.
Oh, we love Heber Springs. So we spend a lot of summers in Heber Springs on the lake. That's my kids' happy place. And that's where we go whenever we're ready to unwind, right? Yeah. So kind of tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've grown up in Heber. I was born there and I've been there ever since. Graduated there in 2022, and now I'm working at Ace Hardware and just trying to figure out what's coming next.
Yeah,
I'm from a family of musicians,
you do.
so I'm trying to make my own in that way too.
Yeah, and if you guys ever get the chance to go to Ava's page, she loves to do all kinds of things singing. I was telling Ava before we started the podcast that a lot of times at night when I can't sleep, I love going to Ava's page and listening to her play her guitar and her sing her songs, and it helps calm my mind before I get ready to go to bed. That's an amazing thing, yeah. Yeah, so kind of let's talk about it, right? So your sister was a good friend of mine, Isla, and kind of tell me about your childhood growing up with her.
So we've got plenty of videos where life really appeared to be normal and seemed to be normal for like siblings. There's a 15-year age gap between her.
Yeah.
So she was 15 when I was born. So by the time she moved out, like as soon as she was able to, by 18. So by the time I was 3 and starting to form memories, she was already like doing her own thing.
Yeah.
But we stayed close as far as, phone calls all the time. She came home often. But the older I got, I think I started to realize that she didn't come home as much and I didn't see her as much. And I don't really remember if I was asking questions as far as where she was at. But her story became relevant to me when I was 8 or 9. I
Okay.
was in 3rd grade, and I remember this one. Sitting down on the couch, I was wearing a red shirt, and my parents sat with me and told me where she was, and that she wouldn't be home for quite a while, because she was in jail or prison. And then at that age, you don't really understand as far as the whys and the hows and the whens.
Right.
Coming home, but a child's relationship with prison is like, you killed somebody.
Absolutely.
Not kill somebody.
Yeah, that was kind of like with my kids. Like when I went to prison, I remember I'll never forget the day before I was getting ready to turn myself in, really the week before. And I was really trying to like sit down with my kids and like explain to them like, hey, mom's going to have to be gone for a little while. And, I'm trying to tell them like I have to go away, and they were just like, why? Like, did you hurt somebody? I remember them saying that. And I was like, no. But then I had to kind of stop and think about it. Like, did I actually hurt somebody? And I kind of reverted back and I was like, I did hurt people, but unintentionally, and then I tried to really explain to them, like, I was an addict, and now these are like the consequences that I'm going to have to face, before I go. And so like, as a kid, you don't even understand it then, like trying to wrap your brain around why. That's all they could say, was why. So I could only imagine like at you being 8, like trying to figure out why, sis was having to go away.
And I thought she was going for drugs, and it wasn't. But that's what was explained to me, is that she was doing drugs.
Yeah.
And that's not good. So she's having to take care of some business. I struggled a lot with that. Like from that point forward of elementary school and middle school, I struggled really, really deep with that. I spent a lot of lunches in the counselor's office. In 3rd grade, it was the same year. We were watching Fox and the Hound 2 in 3rd grade. The lights were off. We're watching a cartoon, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't watch it. I cried through the whole thing. And my teacher took me out and asked me, like, "What's wrong?" It's a kid's cartoon.
Yeah.
But all I saw was this fox and this dog with a relationship I couldn't have with somebody I wanted it with.
Yeah.
Uh, but I've got some really great friends that spent a lot of those lunches with me in the counselor's office trying to talk some of that through.
Absolutely. We kind of talked about this before we even started the podcast. So, kind of tell me about Isla's life. Like, do you have any kind of recollection of like what her life looked like prior to her addiction?
Yeah, so from what I understood, she saw a lot as far as the country as a child, which is cool. Um, her mother she struggled with some mental illness as far, and I'm not sure exactly what was happening, but there was things that she loved her the best she could, and that's what was always explained to us both.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't, as a child, she needed more. Um, and so she saw a lot of that from her biological mother. Um, but our parents were traveling musicians, so she got to see and experience those gigs with them across the country. And I know she spent some time in South Dakota. I think it's
Yeah.
one of the Dakotas. Um, for some time before her mother had passed away, and then my father brought her here, and then she spent a lot of time growing up in Heber, uh, going to school in Wilburn for a little bit, and then she went to Crossroads because Heber just wasn't right for her.
Right. Yeah. Small towns. Like, I can relate to that. I grew up in a small town, not as small as Heber, but, that's like if a lot of the people that I've been interviewing, because we're all from Arkansas. And so that's one of the things we talk about is, how rural and, how just unavailable most of these towns are. Like there's not anything to do and there's not, a lot of us, all of us have experienced some great traumas in our life, that greatly impacted like the women that we eventually became. And so I can only imagine that not having that stability as a child, like even though traveling musician sounds really cool and super fun, but not having her mom, like that probably was a big impact on a lot of the reasons, Isla made the decisions that she made, you know. So you were in third grade. She goes to prison. How long was Isla there?
I don't remember that time, and I really don't even remember if it was prison that time. It could have been jail.
Yeah.
Um, I don't remember how long she was gone, but it would have had to have been. Oh, I think a lot of the minimums were a year.
Yeah.
She's gone a year. Then she'd come back. She'd be gone again. And when she left, it wasn't always prison, but she'd go back
Right.
somewhere else. Um, she she's very impulsive, and so she'd make decisions that would lead her elsewhere. She'd lie about it. You should be gone, which would eventually lead to another conversation of, "Where's Lala?" Which is what I
Yeah.
grew up calling her. "Where's Lala?" And then it was back at the kitchen or my parents and I have a thing about the dining room table because that's where those conversations happened. So growing up, when I was called to the kitchen table, I
Yeah.
wasn't excited to be there if it wasn't Christmas.
Absolutely.
But it was the same thing of she's in prison or jail, and you don't know right now when she'll be back. But she always did come back, and she'd live with us for a little bit, and she'd be gone again. So it was kind of in and out.
Yeah. And how long did that go on for, you think?
She got out of prison. The last time she went to prison was 2015. She came back in 2019. So she left and I don't know, small.
Yeah.
But she came back to a 14-year-old who was taller than she was. That was the last time she'd come home, and she spent some time in a halfway house in Little Rock.
Yeah. That's where Isla and I reconnected. So Isla and I have known each other the better of over 15 years. And when I saw Isla again, she was actually at the halfway house at Phoenix House.
Yeah.
And I was over there. Before my incarceration, I was very fortunate that I was able to go into these spaces. People think about it like before you went to prison, but I remember telling you I was clean for almost 2 years before I went to prison. And I would run groups over at the Phoenix House. And so I would go there every Friday. And I would run these peer-led groups with the women who had just, came out of incarceration. And her and Sally were there together. And And I remember she was so excited for life when she got out that time, she was getting all my information, and she's like, "I'm going to write you, and I'm going to make sure I share this with Lisa, who was another friend of ours who was about to get out." And she was like, "You're going to be in, and we're getting out. And we'll make sure we write you. We'll stay in touch, and we'll do all these things." And I'm like, "Okay," And then in my mind, I'm like, we say these things all the time. Like, that's something that happens. We're going to stay in touch.
Vicious cycle.
But, I wish I'm going to dig, because I know, like, I kept all my letters from the whole time I was down. Like, and I'm glad that I did, because I had some letters from, like, my dad. I had letters from Sally. I had letters from Isla. And I had all these letters, and I'll have to dig around and try to find it for you.
I went through all hers when I was looking through her stuff this past weekend.
Yeah.
And read them all, but
Yeah.
actually I didn't read most of them, but I found them.
Yeah. So when she got out this last time, how long was she staying with you guys whenever she got out that last time?
So actually this time she didn't stay with us.
Oh, okay.
So that was different. She went right to the halfway house, which is like a whole core memory in itself. I had that last phone call with her from the prison, and that was a whole, we were on the phone and I started crying because jumping back, there was the most disappointing thing about this ugly cycle is that every time that she was supposed to get out, it'd be pushed back another year. So the last time she was in for 4 years.
Yeah.
Every year it was, "I'm coming home this day. I'm going to see you this time." And then we were back at the kitchen table. No. Again, "She's coming home this time. We're going to see her later. Later. Later." Now I'm 14 and we're on the phone of it's happening. Like, there is no going back.
Right.
I started crying because this was a thing I prayed so hard about, and I couldn't. I didn't go see her in prison. Like, I don't think my parents really wanted me in that environment.
Yeah, that's a rough environment to be in. I can attest to that. And that was one of the biggest things when I was incarcerated. My parents they always wanted, to travel. Of course, I was in prison in Illinois, because the feds don't have a women's prison that's here in Arkansas. And my parents were like, "We're going to bring the kids to come see you." And I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. Number one, you guys are older, and that's like an 8-hour drive to see me for 4 hours. Number two, it's traumatizing, like, it's easier for me just to separate. And it's not only traumatizing for them, right? Like, I wasn't trying to re-traumatize them, through all my bad choices in life. But it was traumatizing. I would watch these women. Women are a lot different than men, like, we hold these emotions, and I would watch these women go to visitation to see their families, and they were making great progress, because I was very fortunate enough to be in this treatment program inside a prison, and they would be making this great progress in treatment, and then they would go to visitation, they would come back, and it's like everything that they had made, all the progress that they had made would be gone. And rightfully so, like, they could see these kids and hold them for just a little bit. And then after 4 hours of visitation, they had to leave, it's ripped away. And it's like a fresh Band-Aid all over again. And that's something that I learned very on. It was like, I didn't want to feel that. Now, that might've been, looking back, I don't know if it was a good idea or not a good idea, but I think I made the right decision at the time. And I think that they made that right decision for you too, because, you're very emotional as it is, sweet baby. And I can only imagine, like, being able to physically see and touch her, and I think in the state prison, it's not even 4 hours. I think they get a little less time, and then you'd have to leave.
Yeah. And I think for your kids, that was a good choice too, because it's not just the fresh Band-Aid for those who are incarcerated. It's for them too.
Yeah.
Something that's supposed to be so normal as coming home to see your mom, or to fight with my sister, to get that for this long and to say,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
you have to go home.
Yeah. We talk about this a lot in the recovery space, like, the disease of addiction is not a me problem, right? And it wasn't an Isla problem. Like, it is genuinely a family disease. Like, those choices that, us as addicts make, it does not just affect us. We affect so many different people. In those moments, and I can tell you this, I know this, like, we don't think about that in those moments, like, who we're affecting, or.
That's what made me so mad.
Yeah.
Never understand that.
Yeah. It's hard. If I can give you any insight on that, I can tell you that when I was in my addiction, I wasn't me. You know what I mean? Like, I look back a lot, like, I'm very thankful when, I think God was really working in my life in a lot of different moments, but when I got out of prison, I could not remember my password to my Facebook for the life of me. I couldn't get into it, you know what I mean? And, I finally get into it, and I look back and I'm like, I don't even recognize the person that I was, and I was in addiction, and I was in addiction for a long time too. We were for a long time, and I look back at that person and I'm like, who was that person? You know what I mean? Like, I'm so far removed from it now, and I think our brain does this really good job of like compartmentalizing. Like my brain's like, "Oh, let's compartmentalize that." Because like, even if I try to think about like all the things that happened back then, it's like I can think about it, but my brain almost like makes me think about it in third person. You know what I mean? And I think that's like my brain's way of protecting me. Like, we don't need to remember those things.
Good.
Yeah, we don't need to remember those things. And like,
What is to move forward?
right, absolutely to move forward. So if that gives you any comfort in knowing that in my addiction, like it wasn't me in control anymore, and it wasn't God in control anymore. It was literally the substances, and the devil was really just working in my life at that moment, and it made me a monster.
Yeah, and being somebody who, like, the only connection I've had with addiction is watching it. I struggled with, "Well, I would've done this." You can't say that. That's not fair. Um, but being angry about it for so long, I found myself I don't know, it was the whole, "Well, why did you do this?" There are no answers.
Yeah,
There are no answers. Um, yeah, I was angry that she couldn't think of anybody else. And being a kid, I was thinking about, like, you're leaving me behind."
yeah,
And, like, I got older and thought about my parents, like, "You're leaving us behind."
right,
Coming from a child, it was, "You're leaving me."
yeah,
My parents are grown, they're probably fine, knowing they weren't,
right,
or knowing now that they weren't. But as far as I was concerned, like, "You're leaving me by myself." As far as I needed her around, that's such an important role as an older sister.
yeah,
It's a breakaway from my parents and I were real close, we always have been, but it's that the lack of something more that could have been that always made me so angry.
yeah. I'm the baby too.
Really?
And yeah, so I have an older sister, and so it's kind of funny now. I always tell her I'm the big older sister now. But like, and like kind of the same way with you guys, like you are the mature, younger sister, but you're older sister. But yeah, that relationship is so vital in our lives, like the sibling relation. And I tell my kids that all the time, right? Because my kids are at this phase in their life, like where the youngest two are only 3 years apart. I can't wait for the day that they become best friends. You know what I mean? Because they are at that spot where they are just like, and I keep telling them, I'm like, these will always be a constant in your life. Like this relationship as siblings is always going to be constant. Like friends are going to come and go. Like you'll get a lot of friends throughout the course of your life. Like I look back when I was a kid and I only have a couple, like two really, childhood best friends, that like I talk to. I'm like, but your brothers and sisters are like, these are your best friends, and like you got to make sure that you nurture this relationship because like you guys really have each other, like when it's all said and done with, you'll always have each other, so it's important to like nurture that relationship. So when she got out that last time, were you able to see her very much?
For a little bit. So going back to that phone call, that
Mhm.
last phone call, she noticed I was crying. She was talking and it just kinda started falling. She said, "Are you crying?" And then, the dam broke and,
Yeah.
"Yeah, why are you crying?" And I had to explain to her, like, it just doesn't feel real because it wasn't able to be for so long. But it was the very next day. She was out of prison at that point, actually. She was at the halfway house because it was the very next day that I was going to see her.
Yeah.
Um, my mama yelled at me 'cause I opened the door before we, stopped the car. "Wait! Let me stop the car!" But I could see her, which was more than I had for a long time. And so I ran, and that hug, it was August 10th, 2019. That is a hug that I will never, ever forget, and I know I will never feel again, which is painful. But from there, we saw her then. My mama brought her a salad she makes that she loves. So we sat in this is an empty room, and we just talked for hours about things that she'd missed. But when we were hugging, I know she was crying. I said, "Why are you crying?" I was a whole head taller than her now.
Yeah.
And all she ever wanted to be was tall.
And she wasn't.
You're taller than me. Like, it really wasn't that hard.
Yeah, she was small.
But she'd come, her and a lady named Miss Dara. I don't know where Miss Dara's at now or really where she came from, but she was a big help with Lala and this part of her life. They'd surprised me at a marching competition for band at War Memorial Stadium, and I went and got to have lunch with them, which was really exciting. So we saw her then. She had to leave, which was also, again, it's just that pull away of something that I had now.
Yeah.
She'd seen me she'd come to our house one day after school. I walked home from school, and I didn't expect to see her there. But there she was in the driveway, and it was hot. And she's like, "Sister, your hair's on your neck. You need to put your hair up." I was like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
But between that, and let's see, I got on Snapchat one, and there's a couple times in between then, but it really wasn't as often as I was hoping it would be for somebody that I was convinced was going to be by my side right now,
Yeah.
or wherever. And I got on Snapchat one day. I was in school, and I looked at her story, and it's a video of her crying. Not her, but it's an airplane saying, "Please pray for me. I hope this is like the beginning of a new start." And I was, "Where are you going?" I texted her, I said, "Where are you going?" And she told me then she was going to rehab in Florida. And that was the last time I'd seen her, was before that.
So she had relapsed.
Yeah, somewhere along the way, I don't know.
Yeah. I was in prison, and I remember Sally had wrote me and had told me that she had relapsed, and I didn't know what the course was going to happen after that point. But I remember writing Sally back, and I was like, "You tell her that I'm praying for her, man, and like I'll be home soon." I remember saying that to her, like, "I'll be home soon. Like, you guys got to keep it together till I can get home." So she went to Florida and rehab in Florida.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
So good for her. She loved the ocean.
Yeah. Do you know how long she was there?
Yes, so almost a year, which was really great. And actually, I met Sally that day at the halfway house too.
Yeah.
We were connected from then too.
Yeah.
But she told me, "I'm going to Florida for rehab." I'm mad now. I mean, why? It's not like you booked this flight 30 minutes ago. Why didn't I know about it?
Yeah.
I don't know if our parents knew about it. I'm sure they did, but I was mad 'cause why didn't you tell me?
Right.
Why is this the way I'm finding out, is when everybody else is finding out? She was there for almost a year. Yeah, I know she had relapsed a couple times in there, but in the midst of all that, she'd become a mentor. She'd grown up and was able to mentor other addicts, and she'd started her own thing, which is going really well, and we were really excited for her. She'd come back to Arkansas. She told us she was gonna come. She told my parents that she was gonna come back, and they were, "Do not come back.
Yeah.
You have no business here. Not at home. You're always welcome home. That's not it."
Right.
But because she was so impulsive, you knew she wasn't just coming home.
That's a lot of the problem, man. And I see it a lot. Like, a lot of times it takes that relocation change for people to do something different. Whenever you're in your familiar stomping grounds, with the same familiar people, and let's be realistic, the percentage of people who find recovery is not that great, and so it's the impulse, and it's like that lack of self-control. Like a lot of people I meet in recovery that are in Little Rock are not from here. Like it's only by the grace of God that I was able to stay here and get clean here. I literally live in the same house that I used to live in whenever my son, my oldest son, who's almost 20 now, was born. And yeah, I mean, like, I never left this area. And really, it's because the feds told me I couldn't. You know what I mean? They were like, I wanted to move away, but they were like, "Yeah, no, you're stuck to this Eastern District of Arkansas." And so I'm like, yeah, I couldn't even travel to like the west side of the state. Like they're like, "You are literally stuck here." And I can remember thinking in those early times in recovery, like early recovery, it was a lot of self-will. You know what I mean? Like, I was leaning on a lot of prayer and self-will not to, keep living like I was living, because I was right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
I do encourage people, like, if that's what that you feel like you need to do, is to get away, to take that opportunity and do it, because at least in a different location, it's not as accessible. You don't really know a lot of people, and so your chances of finding it, well, not nowadays. Nowadays, you can find it anywhere, but we're better, because you weren't connected to those same familiar people, places, and things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She also, like, while she was in Arkansas many years before when this was all starting, she had children. So as far as, like, you're not only ripping yourself away from me, I am also losing a connection to them,
Yeah.
which was, that was another thing I couldn't understand. Like, I mean, I was angry about that for probably, I don't know, until I could see the grace of God of knowing they're healthy and happy and are in God-fearing homes
Yeah.
and have a life that she could not have provided them.
Absolutely.
So that's a blessing. It took me a long time to see that. But it's one of my biggest ones now is knowing that they're healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, she told us she's gonna come back to Arkansas. My parents weren't happy about it. I was excited.
Yeah.
To see anything wrong with that. I was 16 and she came back to Arkansas and 24 hours later she was dead.
She didn't make it 24 hours.
I never got to see her. She never came home.
How did you guys find out that Isla had passed?
My Uncle David had gotten in contact with my mama, because he had seen stuff on Facebook. I was away for the weekend. I was out fishing and whirling with some family friends for the weekend. Didn't have You're just in mud holes the whole time.
Yeah.
I wasn't on the phone. So they found out then. I really don't know what happened past that point, how it was solidified. But I know he had gotten in contact with my parents as far as, have you heard from Isla? No. I don't know what happened past that point. I know when I came home is when it got real. The people I was with, I noticed that, because they're gonna bring me home, I wasn't driving yet. Things were just different. The way they hugged me was different. I didn't think anything of it at all. I was like, oh, that's a longer hug than usual. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm a hugger. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Susie is her name. She hugged me, and she hugged me for a while, and that's when I was like, it's a long hug. I'll take it. And then Jeff, her husband, drove me back to our house. And him and my mama have this thing. They go back and forth all the time, just out of fun. I got inside, and I don't think I can recall a time where the air has ever felt so heavy. We got home. He came inside to tell my parents hello. There was no bickering, no laughing. It was, I don't know, early afternoon, late morning. My parents are both in the living room together, which probably should be normal. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great, but it just wasn't normal to see that then. The TV was off and it's quiet in the house, and my mama would not look at me. Her head was down. Something was weird. And I told myself, I swear, I told myself, my life is about to change forever. I don't know why, but just that last thought, this is my last moment of normalcy. And sure enough, I've picked a very bad choice of words. I set my bags down, took it all in, thought to myself, said, who died? A very poor choice of words.
Yeah.
My father looked up at me and goes, Isla. My life's been different ever since.
Yeah.
I backed up, trying to, like, I don't know, I think it was just the human nature to put it in reverse.
Yeah. Shock.
Yeah. Until I ran into a chair and she started shaking. What do you mean? What do you mean? When you can assume of what? And that's a thought that I'd had one time before. I hope that never happens. I was sitting at dinner, I was eating, and I was like, I hope that never happens. And she watched another girl overdose one time. And I thought to myself, surely that's enough to break that chain, that cycle.
Right.
You watched it. She watched it. I mean, she was very vivid in saying, like, that girl was blue. I thought surely that was enough. Nope.
Yeah. What did the days kind of look like after that?
Very quiet. I just started a job at Sonic, and I'm talking like days before. I called my boss. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know them yet, and they didn't know me, my character. I don't know, how do I call in and say, respectfully, my sister's passed away. I'm not going to be at work tomorrow. I was panicking. It was my first job.
Yeah.
I said, my sister died. I'm not coming to work this week. And that was it. I hung up. But it's very quiet. I remember a hug. My father and I hugged, and again, it was so tight. Which is comforting, but at the same time, it was like, I want to hug you to rejoice about something. I don't want to hug like this.
Yeah.
Our worst nightmare had just come true, and I have nowhere to go without it. I talked to my parents, but as far as like internally, everything was different. Especially a few months beforehand, she had called to ask me, again, I was 16, so like high school graduation was still far away. She asked me, she said, "Sister, would you rather me come home for this Christmas or would you rather me be home for graduation?" And that in itself told me, like, geez, if I pick one or the other, it means you wouldn't be home for this long. But there's going to be plenty more Christmases. And we didn't get either.
Yeah.
She passed away August 1st of 2020. COVID had come along, everything shut down. Classes, groups stopped meeting because you couldn't.
Right.
And that's when she said, "I'm coming back to Arkansas."
Yeah, we saw a rise. I was incarcerated in 2020, all of 2020. And I remember, I'll never forget when COVID happened. And I was watching it when they let us watch it on TV for just a little bit. But then, it kind of started creating this panic inside of the facilities. And so they ended up taking the TVs and we had no access to any kind of media, when it came to COVID. But I remember the letters and some of the emails that I would get that would come through. I remember getting some email and it was like they were happening one after another, after another, after another. And like almost to the point to where I was just like, I was so numb, like almost desensitized to it, like it was crazy to me. I think COVID had a huge impact on the recovery community because, they couldn't go to their meeting places, they couldn't, everybody was in such a hysteria of like, what was happening in the world, and nobody was going anywhere. They were secluded, and isolation is, even without, a pandemic added to it, right? But isolation is something that is so detrimental for people who are in recovery. Like, we need that connection, like we literally, yes.
Something else to hold on to.
Yeah. My mom, and it's so crazy to me, like I literally have almost 8.5 years of long-term recovery. And my mom to this day is still like, why do you still go to those meetings? Like she doesn't understand it, and it's okay. She doesn't ask me as much anymore, but, she didn't understand it, like why I needed that connection, because when we're alone to think of our own thoughts in our own heads and, we can get crazy up there. It can get kind of squirrely, and so I remember Sally had wrote me, and that was the last letter I think that I got. Well, I might have got one more from Sally after that, but she told me that she had passed away. And
I told you?
mhm,
I didn't know that.
yeah, that's how I found out. It was through Sally. And I was like, yeah, who now is also not with us anymore. And I remember, and I told Sally, I was like, I was kind of mean in this letter. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of, Sally's like a little sister to me. And I kind of talked real bad to her, and I was like, you better, you have to stay alive. You know what I mean? Like, you have to get through this. And she's like, I promise you, I promise you. And she did, she made it through there, but it wasn't too long, after I got out of prison that Sally ended up passing away too.
That wasn't from addiction.
In a way it was. Yeah, it was. It was connected. She had relapsed, and, she ended up having, now I can't say that it was addiction or not, but she ended up having like an asthma attack, and then the lack of oxygen and stuff to her brain, and it just was too much, I play with that one in my mind a lot too, right? Like, I think, was that from the addiction? Could have been different, like maybe if her heart rate wasn't so high, or, you know what I mean? You just, all these different things that you play in your head, like how it could have been different, but yeah, it took her life too. So after that, they had the services. Did you guys have a service for Isla?
No, we couldn't, for a few reasons as far as was COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That, and when you make such an open invitation, you don't know who's gonna show up.
Absolutely.
I love her with my whole heart more, and all I knew was the good side of her.
Yeah.
But I know there was the other side that I didn't know.
Right.
She'd done people dirty, she'd done people wrong. Had we made it public, my mama told me, like, we can't have that. We don't know who's gonna show up and what their intentions would be.
Right.
So we did do a Facebook Live. That was hard. That was really hard. I really still don't use the whole past tense because, like, it's not that she was my sister. She
is your sister.
Still my sister.
Yeah.
Except for, like, when she was here, that's different. But yeah. And that's also another thing is, like, it was hard to explain that as a little kid to other little kids who don't understand that. And I would never wish that to be understood. But I think my truest envy in my life is the envy of wanting to argue with somebody. I added that argument. I wanted the bickering, the noise, explaining to people, my sister. I talk to her all the time. She's still my best friend. Then where is she? Oh. She's in jail. She's in prison. And it's the
stigma behind it. Yeah.
And so I found the words when I was very young is good people make bad choices.
Absolutely.
She had a wonderful heart. Every human heart is deceitful. That's just our nature.
Right.
But it is just as much gold too. Her laugh is my favorite. It's so loud.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah, we used to aggravate all the girls when I would go up to the Phoenix house, and then we would be sitting there because I have the most obnoxious laugh as well, and so does Sally. And I remember those girls were like, they would just look at us like, "Can y'all be quiet?" Like we were just,
they're not laughing.
Yeah, because we were cutting up. We were having fun. It was so funny. The last time I got to saw her, I took her and Sally to go get bus passes. Okay, so they just got to the halfway house and they needed bus passes, and they were like, "Well, we're gonna try to navigate this bus," and I'm like, "Y'all are," and Sally's like, "You're coming with us," and I'm like, why do I have to navigate the bus? You know what I mean? Like, why do I have to get on this bus? I have a car, and I'm like, okay, come on, let's go. And so we get on this bus, and we got so lost. And I remember we rode it we were trying to figure it out for the life of us. We rode it all the way down to the end of the bus line, and it was way far away. Like it wasn't supposed to go where it was. And so we ended up riding it all the way back. And I was like, yeah, y'all have fun with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you guys have fun with it. And I remember Sally writing me. She's like, we finally figured out the bus, sis. And I'm like, praise God, because I could not. It could never be me. Like, that thing was atrocious, and it was scary.
Yeah, I got plenty of Snapchats from the bus stop.
Yeah.
Bus station.
Yeah. Yeah, I got them bus passes, and then and I turned myself in. So what is the last she passed in 2020. So we're 5 years later now. What does life look like this last 5 years?
I found what I thought was forgiveness for her.
Mm-hmm.
I also struggled with because we were raised with the same morals as far as this is right and this is wrong. But again, going back to the why couldn't you choose differently? I've struggled with the, like, what's it? Generational curses.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It's not that I don't believe it's real because, like, I know, like, genetically things it's real, but it's the frustration of, like, you're still making the choice, so you are still making the active choice. And so I struggled with that after she'd passed. I thought what I found was forgiveness. It wasn't. I think it was brushing it off. I got very dark about it for a while. As far as humor, I made other people uncomfortable about it because I didn't know how to cope with it.
Yeah.
I talked about it. I was very open about it. I remember I'd called one of my best friends and told her, I was like, Paula just passed away, and she didn't know what to say. I think it's, if you don't laugh, you cry.
Yeah.
I was tired of crying. I'd done enough of that, so I wanted to laugh. But I'd done it at other people's expense. It made them very uncomfortable. I thought it was funny, which is kind of disturbing in itself. But like it's part of the journey.
Yeah, it's part of the grieving process.
It wasn't until 2 years afterwards I'd gotten a job at where I'm at now, and I was seeing a boy. Said boy, we'd finished, and now I felt more alone than I was when she left, because now I'm angry. So by this point, I'm 18, 19. I'm so angry at everything. I'd gotten very bitter towards her, not even her passing, but towards her.
Yeah.
You did that to me. You messed up, and you made like this part of my life miserable for eternity because you couldn't make good choices. I've gotten very bitter, mixing that with dark humor. It wasn't real pretty, and I kind of strayed away from like nailing that stuff to the cross. I'd put it on myself. I'll take care of it, and all that got me was hurt.
Yeah.
Until one day, I was also in college. I hated college. A lot.
Yeah.
Hated it. So between that, relationships ending, realizing what I don't have instead of focusing on what I did have, all I wanted to do was talk to her about it, and I couldn't. So I sat in the college parking lot. I was pulling out, and I was crying. I was angry, bitter, lost, internally. I had people I could have talked about it with. I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
Again, and it wasn't even for any matter. Any matter of the fact is that like I can't talk about it. I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
I never felt like I was a burden. I had people ready to listen everywhere. I just didn't want to stop. Because I didn't think it wasn't that they couldn't understand. Somebody lost a daughter. Somebody lost a grandchild. Somebody lost their friend, their cousin, and like I couldn't imagine losing a child, but they couldn't imagine losing a sister. And it's not that like one's worse than the other. It was just different.
Right.
So like our father grew up with a brother and a sister. My mama had 5 brothers and a sister. And like, praise God that they had them all the way growing up. But I'm sitting here trying to figure out my own life, sulking in the fact that I have to miss you longer than I knew you. Eventually I did. I was pulling out of school one day and I told God, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. And so that's where like my adult faith started there, as far as forgiveness, real forgiveness.
Yeah.
Not the stuff where like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You didn't mean to. It's okay. Where you look through every emotion of what you're feeling, target it to why, where is it coming from? Give yourself away. I forgive you, and go forward.
Yeah.
Forgiveness isn't holding it over. I don't blame her anymore. Times come around where I'm unhappy with her because again, like, I want to talk about relationships with my sister. I want to do hair and makeup with my sister, and I can't.
Yeah.
I still get angry. But again, I forgave. I won't forget. I can't.
You can't.
Because if you forget, like, there's no more awareness to be made or heard.
Right.
I'm very public about her story, and part of this is different too because it's outside of my little community. It's a little scary. Just feel like I feel like, am I airing her laundry? Well,
No.
she did it.
Yeah. And that's your story to tell, and I think that it's important for the listeners, especially if you are one of those people, I hope that this podcast reaches everybody. And I hope that there's somebody, that is lost, maybe struggling with their addiction. I don't hope that, but if they are, that they're listening to the podcast and they're hearing it. Like, I think it's so important that we tell the story of everybody. It's not just about us. Like, I love to lift women up and to say, like, hey, I've been through this and this is how I got out of it, but I think it's even more important to hear the perspective of the people that it impacted,
Yeah.
And to know that, or if there's somebody that's listening that maybe they're a sister or a sibling to somebody who's in addiction, to know that it's okay to feel those feelings and that you're not alone,
I've connected with people on Facebook about that, specifically who are siblings of past addicts.
Yeah.
Going through the same thing, depending on where they're at in the timeline of it all. There's one the other day. I don't think she'd passed from addiction. I don't know what it was. It was just the connection of losing a sibling.
Yeah.
That's a horrible code to be a part of. But if we're gonna be a part of it, let's do it together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So knowing, like, you're not alone. We're not alone. And I don't think you can say, like, "I know what you're going through." No, you don't.
It's different. Yeah.
Your story's different. But I'll empathize with you after the sun goes down and the moon comes up and goes back down again. I'll be there.
Absolutely.
I will tell her story in hopes that it changes somebody else, as long as God lets me have a voice.
Absolutely. Well, there's always one question at the end of the podcast that I always ask everybody that comes on, and it's, what is your message? If you could leave today with one message that you want to leave the listeners with, whether it be, like I said, to the person who is still struggling or the family member maybe that's listening to this today, what is something that you want to leave for them?
I think it's, active addiction, it's not the heart making the choice, but substance. But speaking to the heart would be to think about something further than what's right now, about recovery, and that what could be better if you just are so courageous enough to ask for help.
Yeah.
That there's a God who loves you enough to be patient with you no matter what stage you're in. But that you are loved by more than you know.
Absolutely.
As long as I'm breathing, you will never ever be able to say, "Nobody loved me. Nobody cares." So, my name is Ava Noble if anyone would like to read.
Yeah, you guys follow her on her social medias. Ava, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable enough to talk about your story, Isla's story, and sharing that piece of you with the world.
Thank you for having me. I hope I did her justice today. I hope
You did. Oh, she is, Debbie. And you did her the biggest justice ever. So, we've come to the end of the podcast. We are streaming on all major platforms, Apple, Spotify, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can find us there. If you are not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to Long Term, a podcast in recovery. That is a YouTube channel that Ty King and I share together, and listen to all these wonderful stories of people who are in recovery or family members who are in recovery as well. Thank you guys for listening.